The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shades thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. It's Friday, April 12th, and today is National Only Child Day. So shout out to all those single kids with no brothers and sisters. Get to play with all your own toys. Don't gotta share, all that good stuff. It's also National for 12's Day. Rico, do you think
fuck 12.
Do you think law
Fuck 12.
enforcement celebrates for 12's Day?
I'm sure a certain faction of them.
A certain fraction, huh? Interesting. It's also National Colorado Day, National Grilled Cheese Sandwich Day, National Licorice Day, and National Big Win Day, along with National Donate Life Blue and Green Day and National Day of Silence. Thank you all for
anybody who likes licorice, man. I don't understand that.
You know, in the picture,
Sorry.
they had red licorice and not black licorice, so they were distinctifying between
Red
the two.
vines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Anyway,
trash.
no bad. Thank you for joining. You ever smoked weed out of a red vine? You can bite one tip off and one tip off the F, and you know what I mean.
No. I'll try it this weekend.
Try it out. Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above on your screen to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. But kicking it off first, that's right, we have the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte, who put some color on his hat. It looks like he's been painting with all different multicolors today. That's right, it is the dope dad himself, Rico Lamitte.
Oh man, thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jason. And happy Friday, everybody. We can now add FDA Commissioner Robert Califf, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Califf, to the growing list of high-profile Democrats that have now publicly endorsed federal reform of cannabis policy. Those of us who've been in the industry long enough to experience nearly a decade of both parties of U.S. government teasing us with a bunch of hot one day, cold the next, it's right around the corner, I promise, dick teasing ass rhetoric, could really care less about another round of lip service without the happy ending. But hey, it's Friday. And I guess they want to keep our eyes off the ongoing U.S. taxpayer-funded human atrocities going down in Gaza, so let's do it. Marijuana Moments Kyle Yeager reported that FDA chief Califf says that there's no reason for the DEA to further delay making a decision on marijuana scheduling. Califf also said that as a child of the 60s, it would be nice if in his lifetime we came with a regulatory scheme for cannabis. At a hearing before the House Oversight and Accountability Committee on Thursday, South Carolinian Republican Nancy Mace pressed Califf on the timeline for scheduling review after his agency under the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services recommended that the DEA move cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 under the Controlled Substances Act, to which he responded, the timing of a regulatory decision is something that would be up to the DEA and not up to me. There's no reason for the DEA to delay. They have to take into account all the regulations that are in play. Asked whether he expects FDA would assume additional regulatory responsibilities if cannabis is rescheduled, the commissioner said that that is a very complicated topic. Sure it is, buddy. Especially given that this falls in the area where state regulation has been dominant. This is an area where I believe we could be better off, and if we had guidance from Congress about how to proceed. It's kind of oxymoronic. He's asking Congress for guidance here, but let me again keep going. Medical marijuana is one thing where there's a medical purpose and it's proven through traditional medical pathways, but when it's used for recreational purposes, there is no medical benefit in that case. It does not fall under our typical regulation. Mace, who also recently discussed scheduling issues and the need for a GOP-controlled House to advance cannabis reform legislation, and the only one cheering in that crowd was probably Jason Beck. But she also raised concerns about the prevalence of hemp-derived intoxicating cannabinoids and the lack of regulations around those products. Without revealing too much about my age, I'm a child of the 60s, so it would be very nice in my lifetime if we came up with a regulatory scheme where whatever your belief is about the use of a product, where the safety issues that you refer to and are written into law so that we have a scheme whereby we can regulate it. Texan prohibitionist Pete Sessions also addressed the cannabis scheduling issue, stating he believes that FDA did not base its assessment in scientific facts or realities of how marijuana has been abused and used in our country today. And the FDA's recommendation to reschedule cannabis completely ignores the realities of a drug that is causing enormous consequences of children and adults in our country, high schools, middle schools, and communities. Children, children, children. Save the children. Settle down, Pete. Settle down. He then repeated talking points that he and other GOP lawmakers forwarded to DEA Administrator Ann Milgram, urging the agency to keep marijuana in Schedule 1 of the CSA, including criticisms of the revised review process FDA used that involved a new and two-pronged analysis instead of a five-factor review that has been used in the past. Kyle Yeager says that the opponents of the cannabis reform argue that this policy shifts its evidence to of FDA intentionally exercising more discretion to justify its rescheduling recommendation for political rather than scientific reasons. And I think he has a point there. Califf responded with a jab alluding to the lack of cohesive messaging coming from the right. Let me remind you that Schedule 3 does not put marijuana on the market in the United States, and with all due respect, I think cannabis is differentiable from heroin, and I think cigarettes and your colleague just gave exactly the opposite point of view on marijuana policy, referencing Mace's comments. Eager to make headlines for anything other than the current ethics probe digging into his alleged attempt to profit off of Donald Trump's second impeachment probe, Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer gladly took the bait in all the damn airtime, responding with a 5-minute diatribe. His monologue basically saying the FDA is putting its own bureaucratic priorities over the American people by refusing to regulate hemp products such as CBD unless it received additional authorization from Congress. So, yes, we all here know that this is all a bunch of kabuki theater bullshit, and both sides have just taken turns over the last 10 years when most convenient to make us believe that they really care about cannabis reform. With an 80+% polled approval rate, cannabis reform is currently clocking in better numbers than either party's presidential candidate. In fact, the only thing over 80 right now when it comes to the most despised American government in modern history is the ages of both of their candidates. Americans have wised up to everything that our government is at fault of over the last decades, generations, and all of that. And we just need them to stop dividing us on something that we all come together for. That's like my take on all of this, is they're trying to divide us when we all want cannabis to move forward. And they're trying to make it a left or a right issue. It's really not. It just so happens at this current moment of time, the Republicans are choosing the hard line prohibition stance, right? So I don't know where to take of this. I'm tired of like even covering like these stories like all the time, but they keep on popping up in headline news because they're trying to distract us from the other shit that they can't get done around the world and all these chickens that are coming to roost. That's just my take on everything. I love to hear from everybody else. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street. It's Friday. Put a smile on. Let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is probably crazy, bro, but like I somewhat agree with Pete Sessions on this a little bit. You know, the FDA is way out of their boundaries in being able to say that, or HHS is way out of their boundaries in calling for this rescheduling. And so,
you're siding with prohibition, Pete?
I'm, well, not on everything that he said, but on some of the fundamentals, yes.
Is he related to Jeff Sessions?
No, they are not related.
He's a clone.
One's fat, one's skinny and small.
I thought it was like his son or something. I'm like, oh no, that's a wrong legacy to have.
No.
You know?
One's a classic elf and the other one is Will Ferrell.
Oh boy.
Got
Jeez Louise. Jeez Louise, you guys. Yeah, no, I mean, this. I mean, Dr. T, what do you think? Did HHS overstep their bounds because of this? Because of the criteria of how they would reschedule drugs and the fact that cannabis can't be rescheduled under their criteria, how it presently is, they have to redo the whole framework. Do you feel that they overstepped their bounds? I think you're on mute. You're on mute, Dr. T. You're on mute. There we go. Now you're good, Dr. T. Yep.
No, was my answer.
No. Are you just saying that from the activist perspective, or are you saying that in all medical seriousness?
Medical seriousness, I think that all the agencies should weigh in on this plan. Mm-hmm. You know, not some of the agencies have more expertise than others. And none of them have expertise over a plant. They rarely study plants. But in regards to it being a safe product, that's obvious that it's a safe product, and for them to recommend rescheduling because it's a safe product is a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Mark, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, rescheduling is a non-starter. Rescheduling a plant that people can grow themselves to Schedule 3 under the Controlled Dangerous Substance Act is just, foolish. The trap is going to win all day long. A plant people can grow themselves is not a drug, it's a plant. And so, the FDA has recognized that the current methodology that they have in place to evaluate drugs, which are single active ingredient formulations, to take through clinical trials, just does not fit into herbal medications like cannabis. Mm-hmm. And so cannabis is not a drug. It's a medicinal herb, and it needs to be regulated as such. And whenever a medicinal herb can provide relief to a medical condition or any kind of suffering, it should not only be lawful, it should be encouraged before prescribing all these FDA-approved drugs made by drug companies, sold at drug stores, paid for by drug insurance. It's a complete, self-fulfilling prophecy that medical doctors today, for the most part, are basically just drones of the pharmaceutical industry that dispense their, medication. And is there life-saving medication that the FDA has approved through clinical trials? Absolutely. But things like medicinal herbs, which do have, medicinal properties. In fact, you were talking about the Health and Human Services. It's the Health and Human Services agency that owns U.S. Patent 6600305 or whatever the hell it is, the patent that the United States government has on the neuroprotective properties of cannabinoids, including CBD. So how could the Health and Human Services, right, basically did this research at Bethesda, paid for by our tax dollar, with THC that they smuggled From Meshulam's lab, yeah, that's right. The NIH smuggled THC into the United States to do all this research on so they could file their patent, right? Which basically proves what we know, which is that CBD has neuroprotective properties. So how can they say there's no accepted medical application when the USPTO, which doesn't give a shit about our drug policy, looks at the data and says, you know what, this is a patent. This is a patent because you can't predict this from the prior art that's been disclosed before it. So what they deemed as accepted medicinal value, they granted a patent for, and actually the U.S. government licensed that patent to a small company in Pennsylvania to develop new pharmaceuticals from. So while the U.S. government is locking up people for smoking cannabis and for growing and producing cannabis, they're collecting a licensing revenue on their patent that the U.S. government owns, which means us, the taxpayers. Yes, it's coming up on April 15th. We're all acutely aware that we own the U.S. government, not the politicians in Washington, D.C. It's broken, it's fucked up, and they don't know how to regulate cannabis. And so all this is just all bullshit lip service. Mm-hmm. End of rant.
Yes. I agree. And on that, we're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
Oh, man, that was weird. Hey, you, America. Do I look like Sean Connery? Good morning, America. Saman Razani coming to you live from sunny Los Angeles, California with the one and only highest host, Mr. Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast? You can find it on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. No excuses in 2024. If you haven't checked us out, check it out now. And also, check out what the Prophet's doing in 2024.
Nothing gets me more hyped up on Fridays than our team of doctors just going at it.
Yes.
Getting hyped up like that. Get me fired up. But before we get into our two doctors and the esteemed Elise, I hit you with a little bit more of the bullshit rhetoric coming from me and Jason.
Oh, boy.
Coming to the stage next.
Boy.
It's Prohibitionist Pete's newest, most fervent supporter and the highest Republican in every room that he walks into, Jason Beck.
Yeah. Good morning, Rico. You know, politics does make strange bedfellows. That is a fact of life. I've witnessed it many times.
So does the
world.
crossfade. So does the crossfade, Jason.
Speak for yourself, Rico. Mm-hmm. All right, you guys. Rico, you're going to love this. Alabama medical marijuana licensing might start from scratch in a fourth round, you guys. That's right, they might scratch it all. Alabama medical marijuana licenses will be revoked and businesses forced to start from scratch and reapply for a fourth time under a bill that's advanced out of the state Senate committee. Though Alabama legalized medical marijuana back in 2021, sales have yet to begin, and a promised 2024 launch date now seems questionable. Republican State Senator Tim Melson's, with an M, Senate Bill 306, which advanced Wednesday, would revoke the 5 licenses for vertically integrated businesses that regulators issued late last year and force companies to reapply yet again, the Alabama Daily News reported. Frustration with the inability of the Alabama Medical Cannabis Association, the AMCC, to award licenses without drawing lawsuits boiled over, Melson said. And they said that they're wiping the slate clean. And in another quote, the commission had one mission, and they have not executed it, he said, according to the Daily News. End quote. I think in the best interest of this program, we need to start from scratch. We need to throw out every license applicant that received a license. This bill just wipes the slate clean, he says. In addition to the 5 coveted integrated facility permits, Alabama will license no more than 12 cultivators, 4 processors, and 4 dispensaries. Dispensary licenses will be allowed to operate up to 3 locations, and only the integrated licenses would be revoked if SB 306 were to become law. Commission would lose power, and the bill would also severely curtail the AMCC's power and grant licensing authority to the State Securities Exchange Commission, according according to the Alabama Political Reporter. The state's first attempt to award licenses was voided after spurred applicants alleged inconsistencies with the method used to score applications, and lawsuits from applicants who won a license in the first round did not the second voided that round, and a judge blocked the third round in January after noting a serious question as to whether it is also invalid as well. Well, Alabama, you guys just got so much going on down there. All I can say is roll tide. And man, it's just such a great shit show to watch. And this is Jason Beck for the High at 9 News. What do y'all think about this? They want to just tell everyone we're just starting from scratch. I think more municipalities should have done this.
This is bad for the people.
I agree with that.
This is bad for the people. And it's sad that they can't get stuff done down there. And I hate to keep on beating the same drum, but these Alabama Republicans and Democrats in other states, but these are Alabama Republicans, have a lot of stuff going on in the national stage that they are coming to account for. And this is very convenient for them to throw this up in arms and give their constituents another distraction to hook their eyes on.
Fair
and
enough.
what are they going to do? Are they going to give back the money to those people who spent all that money and time to win the licenses?
It doesn't mention anything in the article, but if I had to guess, I would say that they would credit that filing fee on the new filing fee, or since it's the government, they'll probably make you pay the new fee to reapply, and then while you have to file paperwork to get reimbursed for the old fee that you already paid.
They're already getting sued. They're already getting sued by the MSOs that they gave licenses to and pulled them away from and tried to give it to the local guys that were incompetent. And now they're trying to do that over again. Yeah. Like I do not think that they are going to be refunding anybody anything. The state of Alabama is in massive disarray right now. Obesity is crazy in the state. They have a bunch of health issues. They have a bunch of women's rights issues, and they've got incompetent leadership. Like, I don't think they're going to refund anybody. I think they're going to use this. They're going to run away with the cash, and it's going to be a full-time jack move like we've seen time and time again. It just so happens that in Alabama, this is all going to be played out in front of everybody, where it's done behind scenes in other more competent political states. And I say that in jest because it's all incompetency and it's all coming to a head. This is American politics at its finest, and this is why we need to get rid of the two-party system.
Interesting.
Yes.
Doctors, Elise, anybody? Any comments on Alabama?
Well, you got to remember too, Delta 8. I mean, this is Delta 8 country, right?
Yes,
Alabama, right?
Yep. Definitely.
There's
Delta
a lot
8
of
country.
producers of Delta 8 down south who have unfettered access to the market through internet and gas stations and bodegas and so
they don't have bodegas in Alabama.
Sure they do.
Well,
they may not call them bodegas, but they got them.
They're called general stores in the South, Mark.
Aren't there juke joints? Are there still juke joints? There used to be juke joints down there, but
boy.
Juke joints. But isn't it true that again, this is kind of like the whole, aspect of rolling out legalization in states where, like North Carolina, where they grow a lot of hemp. Down south, they grow a lot of hemp and they convert it into these hemp-derived cannabinoids. How important is a medical cannabis program if everyone's smoking Delta 8 and all the other hemp-derived cannabinoids, right?
That's fair.
I don't know.
That's fair. I would call it watered down. Dr. Martin.
Are they though in Alabama? I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have been to Alabama, but I have not. And I don't picture Alabama like New York, where you can actually walk into a gas station or a store and actually
purchase Delta 8 products. Yeah, 100%. Purchase Delta 8 products. Yes, 100%. HHC, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I would think that they would crack down on that and not allow it there.
It's legal under the Farm Bill, Elise. It's legal under the Farm Bill.
But as we've seen and have covered in stories and might cover today, a lot of states have taken their own action to ban intoxicating hemp products or sometimes these, prohibitionist states don't really care about things like farm bills. If it's getting people high, they're going to shut it down,
Well, I mean, a lot of the red states haven't done anything like that at all because...
Yeah. It's Elise, I have not been down there, I want to say, in maybe like 16 years or so. But when you're in the South and you're in very rural areas, like, you can get whatever you need at that general store, at that gas station.
Yeah.
They're all getting their cut, and the sheriffs are getting their cut. The deputies are getting their cut. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind closed doors out there, and
well, and there's no restriction on internet sales at all, right? And
well,
so,
there's certain states, depending on what you're selling. Like some states have banned like THCA flower to sell, so there's a handful of those, and you know what I mean. It's a patchwork out there of different states that have done.
Yeah, like you can't ship Delta 8 to Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness, that I don't see a point to ship Delta 8 to Colorado. They got all the dry
and
weed
patchwork
out there.
Patchwork is setting up more problems, right? Because patchwork, I mean, our roads and our postal system and courier systems are all national, right? Mm-hmm. So patchwork just doesn't work.
I agree with you on that. It's a lot to think, but it's all based off the off the individual company that's that wants to create that liability. Whether or not they want, it's up to them. It's not the government.
I want to just say that you're flip flopping right now, Jason, because you've been trumpeting this patchwork bullshit. I remember when Gretchen was still.
I'm not trumpeting it.
You and Gretchen would always be like, "Oh, the patchwork, you have to get little incremental wins, blah blah blah."
You
blah,
do.
No,
that part's true.
Nothing works as a patchwork when you have federal regulation overseeing all of it.
No,
it's not going to work. So we got to have some changes from the top down, or it's going to be complete disarray from the bottom up.
Fair enough.
How long is the trap in Alabama or the Trap-a-bama?
Ooh, Trap-a-bama.
I like that.
Yeah.
Trap-a-bama.
Sounds like a
Alabama
good flavor.
boof.
Yes.
Well, our friend and noted breeder Scott Reach from Rare Dankness hails from Alabama. He lives in Colorado, so.
Yes, and on that, we're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll right in to Dr. Gene Talleyrand. He's the founder of the CESC, and at one point in time, he probably wrote your parents' recommendation as well under the Medican banner, and you can still get your recommendation today under the Medican banner by reaching out to Dr. Gene Talleyrand. That's right, it is none other than Dr. Gene Talleyrand.
Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks, Jason.
Yes, sir.
So my headline today is from CBS News. Santa Cruz City drops proposed moratorium on new cannabis businesses. So this story caught my eye because Santa Cruz is the home of the first medical cannabis business. In 1972, medical cannabis patient Valerie Corral had a car accident causing traumatic brain injury, headaches, and seizures. Finding that prescription medicine did not control her seizures, her husband suggested cannabis. It worked. In 1992, Valerie and Michael Corral were arrested for growing 5 plants. But the local district attorney dropped the case, claiming sympathetic jury would acquit. In 1993, the couple formed WHAM, Women and Men's Alliance for Medical Marijuana, the first collective. In 2002, the DEA raided WHAM, arrested the Corrals, and destroyed 150 plants. California Attorney General Bill Lockyer and several city officials condemned the raid. Several weeks later, members of WHAM defied the federal government by handing out cannabis from the steps of City Hall. Valerie was a key player in the crafting and passing of Prop 215, the Compassionate Use Act, and WHAM became the first collective to be granted nonprofit status in the United States. WHAM has been called the most legitimate medical cannabis collective, and Santa Cruz is called by some the birthplace of the medical cannabis movement. I turned my head when I read the Santa Cruz City Council on Tuesday decided not to adopt a moratorium on cannabis dispensaries. In early March, the City Planning Commission approved The Hook, a dispensary in partnership with WHAM. However, school superintendent Chris Monroe, along with several parents of students, appealed the approval, proposing an emergency moratorium on dispensaries. In response, many public speakers and written letters expressed deep concerns that the proposed moratorium was specifically targeting the hook. Like WHAM, the hook plans to ensure that a portion of the products are offered for free or on a sliding scale to low-income patients. Changing rules retroactively on this applicant is beyond absurd. It is unethical and sets an incredibly subjective and bad precedent for the future, wrote Jenna Gallant, who submitted a letter to the council. I know for a fact that it's not good government to serve the needs of a few powerful people instead of the needs of the citizens of this community. At the Tuesday council meeting, Valerie Corral urged the council to follow the original recommendations of the Planning Commission. It really breaks my heart to be standing in this position after 32 years of work in the community. This is where we built medical cannabis, here, acting as allies, Corral said. Our mission is to overcome every obstacle that will prevent us from continuing our decades of service to the poor, to the sick, to the dying, and that's really our mission. It hasn't changed. I haven't gotten rich doing this. As a matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. The not in my backyard attitude in Santa Cruz is surprising, but it's unlikely that this moratorium will pass. However, the intrinsic bias ingrained in our collective mind against cannabis lingers. It's good to look at history and see where we all came from. My primary objective remains to allow access to a plant that makes the sick and dying feel better. In the past, there wasn't much discussion on control, taxing, and other regulations. There was only a mission to be compassionate and help each other. And now, WHAM and the Hook must resort to litigation against the city, the very partner with whom it successfully stood shoulder to shoulder to combat the ignorance of the federal government. Is this a sign that we have lost our way? What do you think? This is Dr. Jean Talleyrand with High at 9 News.
It's sad.
Yeah, it's super sad. But shout out to Valerie and Mike Corral. They have been fearless in all of this. I mean, they even got deputized by the Santa Cruz Sheriff's Department back in the day when after they got raided. So much respect to them and to WHAM and all of the patients that benefit from their services. I know there was.
Well, the truth is that they're rallying behind them, and the moratorium's not going to pass in Santa Cruz. It was just surprising to see that it was even an issue.
Agreed. I saw there was a bunch of petitions going out in the last couple of weeks that were involved in this. That I saw a number of different cannabis advocates reaching out to ask people to sign. I know I personally signed it, and I wish them all the best that they possibly can have over there in Santa Cruz.
What do you think about them giving out their weed for free?
I mean, that was always kind of a lot of their model, though. So that's not anything that's changed. That always was their model of mainly focusing on sick, dying patients and make sure and farming it at their farm and then providing it free of charge to the people that desperately needed it. So I don't see a lot of things that have changed from that business model from when they originally started.
People trying to do the right thing.
Glass houses, huh?
What's
a little bit. A little bit, you know, and I mean, this goes back to our conversation we had earlier this week about, you know, MSOs having the power, you know, to own the narrative right now on the national stage. Mm-hmm. And this is a great opportunity for MSOs to come in and partner with these types of businesses that have the ear and the heart of the community. Mm-hmm. You guys have the pocketbook and you guys can't sell your products. I'm not going to call them boof, you know, but you can't sell your products righteously, and you're retreating from these areas that need cannabis. And now you've left in your wake a bunch of, you know, people at odds with each other and no way for them to make money and to monetize and to be solvent, mm-hmm. right? Instead of continuously retreating from established states, an easy way for them to win with these communities and actually get in good with the culture side of the industry, the legacy side, the medical side, the actual patients in established states who've known this is medicine for generations, is to support them. Mm-hmm.
And wham is truly to the true visual definition of weed for the people.
Yes, indeed.
You have anything to say on this, Elise?
Why were they wanting to impose the moratorium in the first place? Is my curiosity, because there are quite a few dispensaries in Santa Cruz. Was it that they just didn't want any more?
Was Emily's Bakery a community staple or something that they used to take their kids to, and they have nostalgia tied to that?
Well, or what?
It sounds to me
sounds like a bunch of Karens.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe a bunch of Karens protect children. You can't protect, and they're continuously refusing to protect legal business owners within their jurisdiction. Remember, we had the story on Santa Cruz and San Jose, and how much their police budgets have swelled, despite Jason's bullshit saying that the defund the police is strong up there in those areas. It's not. They both of them, I think it's like 30 and 40% increase since Joe Biden's taken the presidency in their police budgets. Yet they can't protect cannabis businesses, and they're trying to push them out. When your own businesses, your own non-Schedule I peddling drug businesses, they can't survive. And you know what is this business going to turn into? You can't move the dispensary in there. What's it going to be? Is it going to be a safe injection site? Is it going to be just a crack house? Like what's going to happen with this eyesore of a place, which can be generating decent tax revenue for your struggling community? There's no answer to that. It's just a bunch of BS rhetoric, and everybody needs to stop. It doesn't matter if it's Democrats, Republicans, the people are suffering, and people need this medicine, and you're stopping them from doing it.
Yes, and on that, we're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated.
Melding the young minds of tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you've not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com. And we do want to thank everyone out there that watches the show. We did hit 500,000 views last weekend, and so we want to send much love to everyone. And also, too, we do want to send much love to some of our viewers out there. Elliot and Anna Lewis, today is their 16-year wedding anniversary. Congratulations, you guys. I'm Jason Beck, and this is Smoky Vanilla. And if you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to get a stretch and smoke with Smoky Vanilla.
Hi, I'm Smoky Vanilla. I have my bachelor's degree in kinesiology, and I'm a sports massage therapist and stretch coach. I focus mostly on individuals that are in sport with chronic pain or injury. I love to intuitively create and customize a session based on the individual that I'm working with. We'll go over a few postural assessments, work together to create a wellness journey based on the health history, past injuries, or anything still affecting you today. And we'll get you back on your feet right away with less pain.
We're about to stretch, and then we're gonna smoke, because we're gonna get on our stretch and smoke. If you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to come on down and get a stretch and smoke with none other than Smoky Vanilla.
I hope y'all at home already got your notepads ready, because you are currently tuned in and tooted up for another Friday lesson from doctor, and not just a doctor, but now the professional pot professor, Mark Scialdone.
Thank you, Rico. Was there applause? Oh, yeah, there's applause.
There we go.
Okay. Yes, from the St. Michael's College here in Colchester, Vermont, sitting in my office. Yes, I'm a professor of chemistry now. How cool is that, right?
The professor.
We're going to push back frontiers of science, one undergraduate project at a time. So happy Friday. Hope you guys had a great week. You know, we experienced totality up here in Vermont on Monday. It was wonderful to see the celestial event after feeling the earthquake prior week. So I wonder what Mother Nature has in store for us next. So today, my story comes from Green State, and it's titled, "Legal Weed Products Are Causing Grave Concern." And it's going to talk about some molecules that we've often talked about here on High at 9 News. So at one time, learning cannabinoids found in weed felt like a task. And that's only gotten harder as brands started tearing through Farm Bill loopholes by synthesizing new cannabinoids. The plant is being bent and renamed into gray legalities like THCA and Delta-9, which are just plain old weed, right? The farce takes on darker undertones when considering medical implications of burning and inhaling compounds with little to no understanding about how they affect the brain and how they affect the human body. So two synthetic cannabinoids that are making negative headlines illuminating this worry are HHC, hexahydrocannabinol, and THCO, which is the acetate of THC. So HHC causes severe medical episodes in Europe. Two people in the community of Madrid experienced days of nausea and vomiting after consuming cannabis cookies containing HHC, or hexahydrocannabinol. Brands are synthesizing the compound from CBD, legally grown under the Farm Bill, which is why many are calling it a legal cannabinoid. The illnesses caused the Spanish Spanish Agency for Food Safety and Nutrition to issue a recall on March 22nd for cookies in question and HHC gummies that were made in the Czech Republic under the brand Weed Nation. The products had warning labels stating that they aren't to be consumed, but they have the appearance of food that is especially attractive to children. So probably put in counterfeit labels or packaging that made it appear as though it were just regular food. A rapid alert system for food and feed, the RASFF report states that the patients experienced vertigo, dizziness, and vomiting, uncontrolled vomiting. Wow, that's pretty significant. This isn't the first HHC controversy this year. Many countries outside the U.S. are going head-to-head with the compound. The Malta health minister raised concerns over cannabinoids being both readily available online and in packaging that's attractive to children. Probably got SpongeBob on the label or something like that. Am I dating myself by saying SpongeBob? What's the new cartoons that kids are watching these days? So around the same time, an Irish research paper shared tales of two, this is very interesting, John, HHC-induced psychosis. I can share the paper with you later because I actually pulled the paper. Asking regulators make the compound illegal. The Czech Republic banned the cannabinoid along with HHCO, which if you're following this alphabet soup of nomenclature, HHCO would be basically the acetate of HHC, right? So HHCO and THCP. Now they claim that THCP is hemp derived, but what I can tell you is that all THCP, without exception, all of it is all synthetically derived because there are no high yielding THCP cultivars that have been discovered yet. So it was only discovered in a very, very trace amount, and the way that the researchers were able to identify the compound when the Italian group reported this back in 2019 is they synthesized compound that was spot on identical with what they found in the plant. So the take-home message from that paper was not only this occurs in cannabis, but if you want to make it, here's a nice synthetic prep that'll teach chemists and non-chemists alike on how to make it. So THCP does not come from hemp, although hemp hustlers will tell you that it does. So THCO, which is the acetate of THC, may not have the effects that people thought. So THC acetate, or THCO acetate, also known as THCO, is created by synthesizing delta-8 tetrahydrocannabinol, or delta-8 THC. So you already know that this is being made from hemp because they're talking delta-8. So you can make the acetate of delta-8, but you could also make the acetate of delta-9. But in this context, they're referring to the acetate of delta-8 THC. Is made by adding acetic anhydride. Well, that's also the same reagent that's used in making heroin. So it's watched. The DEA watches acetic anhydride, so it's probably not a wise idea to go buy a bunch and start making it, unless you want to come onto their radar. The cannabinoid gained popularity in the wake of delta-8 proliferating the hemp market. THCO offered an almost psychedelic effect, or so they thought. New data collected from self-administered survey challenges the efficacy of THCO. Consumers shared their experiences of the compounds in what researchers claim to be the first test on whether THCO actually is psychedelic. Data gathered using some questions from the Mystical Experiences Questionnaire, or MEQ, which has been used to gauge the psychedelic properties of other experiences, was used here. So normal aspects of a psychedelic trip, like an altered sense of time, difficulties concentrating on a particular subject, or issues with short-term memory were experienced at a low to moderate level amongst these users. The same goes for hallucinations or trippy visuals, things, the walls melting and things moving and stuff like that. Responses remained below the threshold of a mystical experience, and those who had tried true psychedelics scored lower on all MEQ dimensions. So that's interesting. So people who had already tried psychedelics, they know what to expect, and they're able to basically give better data into this questionnaire. The study further illuminates the fact that there's little known about the newly discovered and synthesized cannabinoid compound. Well, I can tell you there's nothing new about THC acetate. THC acetate was first made and reported in the literature in 1941 by a chemist named Wollner, who was at the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, which was the precursor to the DEA. So the DEA, or the precursor to the Drug Enforcement Administration, basically published the synthesis of THC acetate and taught the rest of the world on how to make it. Isn't that great? Our tax dollars at work there for you. So certain states have made HHCA and other derivatives illegal, while other products are readily available online. At this point, education is the only way to make sure people smoke good stuff. Friends don't let friends smoke bad weed. Well, in essence, these two compounds have nothing to do with good weed, right? These compounds are chemically derived from CBD, which is derived from hemp, but there's nothing about good weed. So again, I'll go back to what I've always said on High at 9 News, which is that if people have access, unfettered access to high-quality cannabis and cannabis products, these recreational synthetics like HHC and THCO will likely go away. That's what I predict. This is Dr. Mark from Shirley Hall here at St. Michael's College in Colchester, Vermont. That's my story for the day. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'd be interested in what my colleagues have to say about this wonderful story about these two compounds.
HHC. Okay, you're telling us.
Yeah, you know me.
This is
I should
psychedelic?
also tell the audience that I am the inventor of HHCA. HHCA, which is basically the carboxylated form of HHC, is covered in a patent that I filed a few years ago. And so, yes, I am the father of HHCA. Not that that's related to this story, but
I can't wait to see the
HHCA
flower
thermally
on the shelf.
decarboxylates to HHC. So that's how we're related.
I couldn't agree with you more, Dr. Mark. Legalization and further access of the real shit is going to drive away a lot of these derivatives, except when they come from big pharma, like a big business. Because why? Like, where are we seeing all of these counterfeit food stuffs now coming from? These mega producers, these mega industries are the ones that are putting those out. And next thing you know, like, oh, is this milk that I'm drinking? No, this is counterfeit milk. And where is it coming from? It's coming from these big businesses. I think that the mass reckoning that we are headed towards, where you're just gonna have to legalize it. You're not gonna get rid of the trap. You're not gonna be able to get rid of any of these derivatives. I think it's actually going to shift, and you're gonna have a lot of these trickling in from big industry. That's I think. They want to cut corners, cut costs. They're going to mass produce a lot of these derivatives.
Did I hear you correctly, Dr. Mark? You said that one of these compounds was a THCO or HHC. What is a psychedelic compound? Did you freeze, Dr. Mark? He might have froze. I think he froze on us.
He got taken out by the
that's what he said, that it was psychedelic. But cannabis is psychedelics. It's just a play on words.
I'm not buying.
You can have a psychedelic experience with cannabis.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I believe that part.
Come into our lab, Jason. We'll give you a psychedelic experience on cannabis.
I'm down to try this. I'm down to try this. I'm down to check this out to see if this is possible. I'm totally willing to be a test dummy for the sake of science for you, doctor.
You know what's really interesting about this article is the vomiting. Not that it's good, but it's interesting because it's similar to the effects of cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome.
I was thinking that too.
Maybe something about those synthetics aligns with that cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome.
Well, maybe
we can understand it more.
Maybe it's not THC that causes cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, Adam, at all. Maybe it's just like some random compound that is in cannabis that is causing that. Dr. T.
Or it could be the person too. You know, in Rousseau's paper, he pointed out that there might be some genetic predispositions to it as well.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Any thoughts on that, at least, before we go to our last commercial?
I remember the first time someone gave me like a THCO sample, and I think that package sat in my kitchen for 2 years before I threw it away. I never wanted to touch that stuff. So I feel genuinely sorry for the people who seek it out because they are looking for medicine or healing or a good time, and that's all they can find, and then to end up with not even a good experience, but an actually, negative experience, getting violently ill or having being scared from hallucinations. I mean, I feel bad for them and agree with what everyone said. If better access, this wouldn't be an issue. And then back to the psychedelic thing, I think what Dr. Mark said was they did, it was a self-surveyed study. So some people reported feeling psychedelic-like experiences, but those who were experienced with psychedelics already called it less psychedelic than an actual psychedelic experience. So I did appreciate that information about the self-study. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's sad and again, not even that new. I also think it's crazy that it happened in Madrid and that these products are being made in the Czech Republic.
It's probably all the stuff.
The Czech Republic has long been making all kinds of. They've been doing cannabinoid research. Lumir Hanush, who worked in Professor Mishulam's lab, is a Czech national, and as it turns out, a lot of hemp processing is done in the Czech Republic and in Eastern Europe. So in Czechoslovakia, they still do have a lot of the decortication infrastructure to be able to make hemp paper and whatnot. But yeah, there is a lot of sort of this, alternative cannabinoid thing going on in Europe. But, the Czech Republic and other municipalities over there have really sort of reached out to try to put a lid on it. But Sorry for dropping out there for a moment. No. I just wanted to say one thing about THC acetate. So from Rescheduling work, if you put an acetate group onto THC and you try to dock it into the CB1 receptor, it doesn't dock too well. So the acetate itself is not a good ligand for the CB1 receptor. But what happens
Dr.
in
Mark.
the brain is that the acetate actually undergoes a hydrolysis reaction to release THC. So this is known as what's called a prodrug. So prodrugs are substances that we consume, and in the body, they're metabolized to the active form of the drug. And so what that does is when you put the acetate group on the phenolic position of THC, is it just changes the pharmacokinetic profile and how that is metabolized, and it gives a longer onset of activity. But it also, they've claimed that it also provides enhanced penetration through the blood-brain barrier, which is where the CB1 receptors are located in the brain. So there's probably a little bit of both going in there, but I wanted to bring up one other thing, which is that if you dab THC acetate or THCO at very high temperatures, it could generate a degradation product called ketene, which is something that you do not want to be inhaling into your lungs because it's extremely reactive. The ketene itself, if it does decompose from THC acetate at dab rig temperatures or nail temperatures, the ketene will immediately react with moisture in your mouth to make acetic acid. So you may get a sensation of vinegar. It's basically vinegar, which is acetic acid, but there's no way that ketene would actually make it down into the alveoli of the lungs because it would react with moisture in your oral saliva immediately. So anyway, some science on the back end of that story.
Interesting that in the brain there's a no docking zone, Dr. Mark.
Yeah.
And on that, we're going to... Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the CB1 receptor is one of the most prevalent receptors in the human brain, correct, Dr. Talleyrand? And especially in the frontal cortex, which is the most human kind of developed portion of the brain. And that's not a happy accident. And I think that can only be the fact that humans have co-evolved with this plant for millennia. And so we have a receptor that basically is hardwired for it.
Fair enough. We're going to go to our commercial, and we're going to be right back.
Get ready for the return of the shit show to Los Angeles, returning Friday, May 3rd, 7 p.m. to midnight at a brand new venue. Comedy sets by comedians such as Demi York, Lindsay Ames, Alyssa Phillips, Chris Thayer, Josh Shakespeare, Fumi Avi, Jay Snow, Brent Weinbach, Chris Kelly, and hosted by none other than Abdullah Saeed. So head over to www.cloudmedia.partners now to get your tickets, and we'll see you there.
Y'all, this absolute industry powerhouse has over a decade experience judging cannabis all around the world and looking great doing it. Her Midwestern roots have now branched out to damn near every corner of the globe, and today, the Haitianista is blessing us with a little womanly wisdom to close out the show. Coming to the stage, Elise McRoberts.
Thank you so much, Rico, for that wonderful introduction. Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here. Happy Friday from Marin County. Today, my story, though, we're talking about Louisville, and this is a fun one. So, I mean, not for Louisville, but we'll talk about the cities it is fun for. Louisville ranks, and I'm sorry, where did this come from? I don't know my source, Jason Beck, but Louisville ranks worst city nationally for weed, marijuana use ahead of 420. According to Real Estate Witch, the organization worked with Leafly to rank the 50 largest U.S. cities in order from best to worst for stoners. So shout out to Leafly. There we go. There's another thing they're doing, apparently figuring out these cities. Metrics, we covered Leafly last week, so that's why I mentioned that. Metrics taken into consideration included the legality of cannabis, the number of dispensaries per 100,000 residents, number of medical cannabis doctors per 100K residents, the average cost of a high-quality ounce, what's high quality, the price of medium quality ounce, and more. So Louisville was number 50 on the list, coming in last place. While the state has plans to launch its medical cannabis program in January 2025, it's significantly behind when it comes to the marijuana movement. According to the website, 37 states have already legalized weed for medicinal use, with 24 states and the District of Columbia allowing for recreational use as well. David Downs, senior content manager at Leafly, said, "We're praying for Louisville, we're hoping for change in Kentucky, and it's just a matter of time." Based on the data, Louisville residents search for marijuana-related terms about 21% less than those in other cities, and visit leafly.com about 50% less. Furthermore, the average high-end ounce in the city costs nearly $350. Shout out to the Louisville Trap, with the medium-end ounce averaging around $254, also not bad for the Trap. The city also has 0.1 marijuana retailers per 100,000 residents and 0.1 medical cannabis doctors per 100,000 residents. Bummer. So that's the bummer for Louisville, but here's the fun part. Here are the best cities in the U.S. for weed. Are you ready? Sorry, the article has a typo because they say the best but then the worst again. But anywho, the best cities in the U.S. for weed are Denver, Colorado, Portland, Oregon, Las Vegas, Nevada, Buffalo, New York, Baltimore, Maryland, Phoenix, Arizona, Seattle, Washington, Sacramento, California, Kansas City, Missouri, and Providence, Rhode Island. And another list of the worst cities for marijuana/cannabis in the U.S. include Louisville, Kentucky, Dallas, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Houston, Texas, Birmingham, Alabama, Nashville, Tennessee, Charlotte, North Carolina, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Memphis, Tennessee, and Indianapolis, Indiana. So that's the story. I thought this was a fun one because I wanted to hear what my fellow correspondents and our viewers in the chat think about these lists of best and worst cities, and maybe did some not make the list that should be on it. And yes, of course, prayers for Louisville. So this is.
Wait a minute. Did you say San Francisco?
No, isn't that weird that neither San Francisco nor Los Angeles?
Yeah, I question all these results.
We were bigging up David Downs last week, showing him, giving him love and everything. He's calling these the best. I mean, and I don't want to beat Jason.
It's not him. It's
hold on, Rico. First of all, his number one.
The metrics of the survey should not point to best.
His number one
be pointing to most accessible, because I know Jason's gonna.
His number one, bro. His number one city was Denver, Colorado, the land of dry boof weed.
Well, look at the metrics. They shouldn't call this best.
You might as well be in Canada.
Accessible cities. Yeah, just say most accessible cannabis. You're not talking about quality. We're not talking about anything else. Like, you can't say best. That's gonna get people's, that's gonna get people's emotions going right now.
Wait, I don't understand. David Downs just started SF Weed Week. It's starting tomorrow. In San Francisco.
I think Dr. T. I think you should.
The big picture. Look at the big picture. How you get shit started with some controversy.
Dr. T. I think you should.
So shout out to D Downs.
I think you should organize a protest, Dr. T.
Well,
I think
wait. We got to clarify though, because this is getting off track. It wasn't David Downs and Leafly that made this list. They partnered with this website called Real Estate Witch to do the study together. So the list
their hands are still on it. There's a fall guy. That's a fall guy, so they could put this out there and try to hype up Colorado.
Real Estate Witch was created last week.
Exactly. That's some hype. This
was created last week, and it was produced by Truth Social from the proceeds of their IPO.
Mm-hmm.
They're just trying to get people to move to Denver. It's a real estate site. Those best cities were really random. Sacramento is the city in California, really, with the best, or for the best
Denver, Portland, Vegas, Buffalo, New York, Baltimore just came online. Phoenix, Seattle, Sacramento, Kansas City, and Providence, Rhode Island. I mean, maybe that's it. Yeah, looking at the metrics, like I can't call these best. I would just say like they have the most accessible per capita.
Can we go back to the worst cities? Can we go back to the worst cities for a second? so like to me,
Louisville, L's up Louisville.
Well, no, I'm just saying. I'm just saying if with this list, this is where all the trappers should go to get the highest value for their product.
Oh, real estate.
Yeah, bro. Yeah,
they take cash for these ads.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, bro. That's where to go with your trap stuff right there.
Well, just like doctors, right? You have the best doctors, right? So by definition, you have to have the worst doctors, right? They're somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Right. The best doctor, and there's got to be like the worst. So you're ranking them. But to me, the best weed is free weed, right?
Yeah, not all weed is created equal, though. But they do say that a friend with weed is a friend indeed.
Indeed, yeah.
Yes.
But you know,
liberate.
You ever have just a friend who grows weed just give you some, and you're just like, oh man. This is the best weed in the world, man.
I don't care how many seeds are in it. This is great.
Yeah, right.
This is great.
Yeah, no.
Let me tell you how many people have given me their weed saying it's the best weed in the world. Everyone always thinks
single one.
It's the best.
And they're all wrong.
Every single one.
And they're all wrong.
This is the best.
They're all wrong. Every single one of them.
But shout out to all those people. Please, I'll keep taking it. Bring it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You want to be polite. You know what I'm saying? Like this shit might turn brown on my desk.
Mm-hmm.
I have a system. So I have a system for free weed when I get it. There's free weed that I'll consume. There's free weed that I'll give to people that I like that I know smoke weed, so it wouldn't insult them. It's like that quality. And then there's free weed that I'll give to people that I know wouldn't know boof from good, but you know they would still enjoy it. So I give it to that crew. And then there's the free weed that I give to our tent population who live on the streets.
Tent population.
There's 4 categories.
It was cute. The tent population.
Nice.
That was very PC of you.
I dig that. I like that. Elise.
That was very big of you, Elise. Very big of you.
Love all over the world.
It's medicine. I don't want to throw any medicine away just because it's not good enough for me to smoke or dab or consume. Somebody might enjoy it.
Hey, that's all fair. I'm all in support of that. 100%.
Well, and I always remember, I'm old enough, probably Jean is too, to remember the Commander Cody and Lost Planet Airmen anthem of seeds and stems, right? When you're down in the seeds and stems, I mean, it's a song about, you know, how this guy's wife left him, how the people came and repossessed his house, his dog died, all these negative things, but he's down to seeds and stems again, too. So.
So he's going to get by.
Yeah,
a great song. Check it out.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go to this last story. I'm sorry. My bad, you guys. You ready for this, Rico? You ready?
Am I ready?
All right, here we go. New York's legal marijuana industry reaches a new high with over 100 licensed pot shops raking in the green. Man, if this isn't a puff piece, I don't know what is, you guys. New York's legal cannabis industry hit a new high this week with more than 100 licensed pot shops now open across the Empire State, officials said on Thursday. Of the 103 marijuana sellers in business, 44 are located in New York City. 19 other licensed weed operators will open shortly, and 35 other retail licenses were approved by the State Cannabis Control Board on Thursday. In quotes, "We haven't even tipped the iceberg yet," CCB Chairman Tremaine Wright said during Thursday's public meeting. Legal marijuana sales from cannabis shops jumped 32% in the first 3 months of 2024 to 85 million from 62 million during the first quarter of 2023, reported John Kagan, the State Office of Cannabis Management's policy director, said. The number of cannabis stores opening has dramatically picked up the last few months, but the state regulators admitted that the large illicit weed market is still a big problem and hope that Governor Kathy Hochul and Albany approve a tougher law as part of next year's budget to make it easier to shut down unlicensed shops. Marijuana consumers still have thousands of options in the state thanks to a huge black market of illicit stores, said the CCB member Jennifer Gilbert Jenkins, and in quotes, "We have all these illegal stores that need to be closed," she said. A key negotiator for the state Senate said Thursday a tougher padlock law will be part of an eventual accord on the budget, which was due on April 1st. There will be a big boost in enforcement, in quotes, with illegal shop closing options. Senate Finance Committee Chairwoman Liz Kruger, Democrat of Manhattan, told the Post. The state saw legalizing marijuana was approved back in March of 2021, but the rollout has been hampered by political and bureaucratic hurdles and lawsuits, to say the least. There was a delay in appointing members to the CCB and hiring of staff when former Governor Andrew Cuomo resigned amid a sexual misconduct scandal and was replaced by Governor Kathy Hochul. The first cannabis shop opened in December of 2022, but lawsuits, a backlog of applications for licensing dispensaries, difficulties with financing, and failure to stop the unchecked growth of illegal shops slowed growth, and farmers were left in the lurch with hundreds of pounds of flowered marijuana. They had no one to sell it to. And they're probably still selling it to you today, right now. But this is, what do you all have to say about this New York going on, trying to just showboat about the fact that they have 100 shops open? I think they're just gaslighting everybody. I don't know how much of a puff
piece you want to call it, because it's coming out of the New York Post, which is always railing on New York cannabis industry. The one thing that really, really irks me is when politicians get the stage, like Tremaine, right? I have nothing against her or anything like that, but she said tipped the iceberg. Like, we haven't tipped the iceberg yet. That's not even a term. She just like made that up. It's tip of the iceberg. Meaning there's more underneath. Like, that's you don't tip an iceberg. You crash into that shit and you die. What happened to the Titanic? Yeah. Are you saying that the New York cannabis industry is the Titanic and it is going to crash and burn and everybody's going to die? I thought it already had. The trap is going to rise. And that's what I got out of it. And I think that's why New York Post ran this story.
You think it's just because of that? Well, I mean, what do you think about this part, Rico? Them bringing back this padlock law. Sounds like they're going to try to
win those policies, man.
Sounds like they're going to try to lock people out of their property.
I mean, they're not locking. Yeah, I'm gonna take the bait right there.
You like that?
They're not locking the squatters out of the property. They're locking the owners out of properties. We're seeing that on live TV in New York too. New York has a lot of issues, and this cannabis, again, a Democrat state, not just Republicans. Yeah, you're trying to say, oh yeah, cannabis is going good, going bad. We're gonna put that on front page so we don't talk about our real issues.
Fair enough. Dr. Marks,
to balance all the bad media out there talking about the failed program and all the lawsuits and all the places you can buy unlicensed weed, all the hemp stuff, all the problems. So they needed something positive out there, right?
I mean, I guess
so. So I mean, shout out.
I just feel like they're gaslighting everybody.
New York. Thank you, Elise. For bringing us back to the positivity. Shout out to New York for 100 strong, and I hope that these businesses do flourish. Even though we were supposed to be at 100 last February via Kathy Hochul's original assessment. But,
exactly.
It is what it is. It was what it was.
And based on the population, New York needs several thousand. Yeah. So they've got quite a ways to go.
Exactly. Dr. Mark's over there doing calculations, I see, formulations.
He's over there putting together formulas.
Yeah.
Formulations, calculations.
I think he just invented THCB.
Yeah, I mean, the wonderful thing about chemistry is, we go up to the whiteboard here and we draw new molecular structures all the time, and I get inspired to just draw a structure that I could then go out in my lab and actually make. So unlike astronomers study the stars, right? Geologists study rocks, right? Biologists study life. We study chemistry. So we make what we study. We have a very unique area of science. We could push around electrons on the board, but ultimately go down into the lab and make new things. It's cool.
Cooking shit up.
I love it.
Cooking it up.
Just don't make anything that causes cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome.
No.
Yeah.
No, we won't. We won't do that.
Oh, he's curing CHS. You heard it here first. Dr. Mark Scialdone. Professor.
No, but I think one of the things you want to do
this morning.
You know, like all these things we're talking about safety issues. I mean, there's so many things that you could explore these days that are really important to legalization. And so I think one of the things we want to look at is we want to look at some of these minor things that are in these Delta-8 products that we don't know what their impact is on human safety. So one of the projects I'm working on is we're trying to figure out what's all in these synthetic mixtures that people are consuming. People are basically being guinea pigs for these products, and it's all due to prohibition. So if they had access to cannabis, they wouldn't need to be buying these products, and these products would be research curiosities for scientists like myself to go in the lab and try to figure out, you know, what are they good for? And maybe the FDA process can take some of those compounds like HHC and TH acetate and all the other, you know, cannabinoids, and actually study them to find out what they can do. Can they do something that cannabis can't do? Cannabis, you know, THC, it covers a lot of ground, you know, and certainly cannabis is a valuable medicine. I think Dr. Talleyrand would agree with me, but I would say that, you know, these alternate cannabinoids could have therapeutic value, but years from now, after we've studied fully their safety and tox, you know, and we really know what these things do in the body, and we're not just playing, you know, guinea pigs with people who just want to get high.
Mm-hmm.
We love you, New York.
Yeah. The gift that keeps on giving. You ready, Rico?
Thank you all for joining us for yet another week of High at 9 News. You can catch us live weekdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to the Superfans Show. Love getting their comments posted live on the big screen. To our live audience and online supporters, catch us across all media platforms. Tuning in each day to the headlines of chaos, also known as the developing cannabis industry. To our vetted correspondent team tuning in from all over, bringing us much needed variety of perspective and your respective opinions to the table. Thank you. Our production team, Cloud Media Partners, our sponsors keeping the lights on our AV struggles to a minimum. And it is Friday, Shabbat. For you, my friend Adam. Hope you have the large and the small feathers alike this weekend. Only the greatest, only the most kosher of feathers in your hair.
Oh.
As always, Cannabis Sativa L, the reason we show up to read these stories every single day. Thank you, too. It has been Friday, April 12th, 2024. The show's over. You've all been blessed with top industry headlines. Hope it was enough for you to put in your pipe and smoke at least until Monday. My name is Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News, the cannabis industry's #1 daily news show. And we're going to give it to the professor, not Grayson Boucher. All you and one fans out there know who the professor, Grayson Boucher, the greatest white boy on the streets of, playing street ball out there for and one. But Dr. Mark Scialdone, professor, congrats. What you got for us?
Well, I guess, you know, my biggest kick out of teaching is that, you know, you're educating young people and inspiring young people to go do great things in their life. And so I don't think you need to be a professor to do that. I think anybody can be a teacher. So if there's a teaching moment that you could maybe, you know, extend to maybe a younger individual in your life or somebody who needs a little bit of teaching or a little bit of guidance, use that teaching moment and you'll feel really good about yourself, because it's just a great thing to be teaching and to be educating people is just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And so look for that educational teaching moment in each one of your lives, and don't be afraid to share your knowledge with someone who can use it.
Awesome.
Very not.